How are you?
I'm good. I've been sick all week.
Oh no, with a poorly cough, cold and snotty flu-ness thing?
Just a cold, a head cold.
Oh, la gripe.
Yeah, no coughing. But...
Constipado.
What did you say?
Constipado.
Exactly.
What do you say? How do you say it in Italian?
Un raffreddore.
Oh, isn't it lovely to have all these different words?
Yeah, the symptoms are more or less the same too.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, a cold just doesn't do it, does it?
I had to go to the pharmacy, and of course, there are things like that you just bump into, big gaps in your vocab. But
Yeah, of
sono
course, yeah.
contaginato. Congestinato. So I'm congested. But then after that, pretty much like even how to say paracetamol, I didn't really know. I could have a go, but. Anyway,
Yeah.
So what I was going to be doing was 6 hours of Italian every day, but I've done none. I've just been reading and sleeping.
Oh,
Slightly disappointing.
Yes, but the body wants what the body wants. You should know that by now. You've had it long enough.
This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
How are you doing?
I'm okay.
You've come from I can hear it in your voice. You've come from another world, haven't you? You've
Yes.
jump cut into this crazy one.
Yeah, I have a feeling that today will possibly not be as light as usual, and it probably won't be as giddy. Not least because I'm not drunk, but also because we're recording at the tail end of our working week, and I have had back-to-back meetings all day. And so I'm effectively moving from one meeting into another meeting. So,
That's right. Well, I mean, I think it's important to think of this midlifing as just another meeting in your life, really. And I apologize. I'm directly responsible for this happening today because, of course, I've got my weekends. Everything's all a little bit topsy-turvy until this one goes to air, which will be the day I'm actually travelling back to the UK. So at that point, we can return to our normal... tipsy.
relatively normal service.
Exactly. Relatively normal.
Although I will be recording in Lisbon for one of them.
Oh, I've been designing logos for my bakery the last couple of days.
And did you decide to design them, or did you let an AI do it for you?
Look, I had a little play with AI about maybe about a month ago. I thought I'd just have some fun. And they were pretty dodgy. They were all very familiar looking.
Right.
As AI tends to be, it tends to a little bit like, hang on, this looks very familiar, but not in a quite so familiar way, in a slightly uncanny valley familiar way.
Yeah.
And so I kept one of them and used a particular aspect of it to start experimenting. So I've had a lot of fun.
Ah, that's great. I quite like the way that AI seems to make generic chocolate bar wrappers when it does things. Do you know when you go into like a Lidl or an Aldi and you buy a generic version of a Mars bar or a Snickers bar, and you look at it and you go, it's almost there, but it's not quite. And then you put it in your mouth and you go, it tastes the same.
It's just...
So I'm really happy.
It's basically like AI-generated chocolate is what you're saying.
I'd eat that.
Yes, it's I guess when you're dealing with probabilities, that what's the most likely taste to happen here? Oh, it's going to have lots of sugar, and it's going to look brown, etc.
It's going to be chocolatey. Yeah, we should definitely have that.
Yeah. Some milk. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. Well, I don't know enough about probabilities, but it does seem a strange way of... although I did read something, not in the other book I was reading, but about the idea that human beings are pretty much, that's very much a similar kind of sense of taking on enormous amounts of information and then just applying this is the most likely kind of things to a lot of the things we do, because we can't deal with so much information. We can't deal with, so we're, even if you take vision, for example, we're taking an enormous quantity more than we're, you might say, perceiving, or that we're aware of. And so I was quite curious about that. It made me feel a little bit, out of control.
a bit. Talk to me about how you feel a bit out of control, Dr. Ellis.
I can't. I'm not going to be able to hold this conversation. This is the most talking I've done all week. Just that last bit. Then, I did have something I thought we could talk about, but I wasn't sure if we talked about it before.
Oh, well, tell me what it is.
Well, I have a note, and it says this. It's 2 words. Inspiring teachers.
Oh, well, I don't know.
The problem, if we'd had someone who was doing good show notes, I would have been able to do a quick search through those show notes to find out if we'd talked about this. And I have a funny feeling, I think something might have come up at some point about feedback when Uncle Robin Nelson...
Oh, right.
But and so I guess I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I was once asked...
About inspiring teachers?
Yeah, I was once asked to write an essay, actually, as part of a sort of a teaching qualification about my experiences of other teachers, and it was one of the most pleasurable things I think certainly did as part of that course, but it was really... it was one of those courses where, when you've got your teaching how to teach course, and all the people who come on and do their PowerPoints are just like, they're basically doing everything they shouldn't do. It's extraordinary, extraordinary sort of lack of awareness about that whole world. Anyway, yes. So I wrote this essay, and it was really, I guess, instructive in relation to how blessed I've been, and also cursed in other circumstances, with people who have been deeply inspiring, and also ones who just have lost me for different reasons.
That's very, very interesting. Bob and I were having a similar conversation, but a few scant days ago.
I love the word scant.
It's nice, isn't
and
it?
Also few scant is excellent.
It's like doubling down on how little time has passed.
It's totally, yeah. It's actually just to interrupt. I finally got the nerve to give some feedback in Italian the other day, or respond, and there'd been a big conversation in Italian, and did I say this to you? And I jumped in and been blah 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 molto 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 più meglio, which is basically saying, it's like 101 Italian. It's basically saying very, very betterer.
You did mention that last week.
Damn.
But I think
cut this out to make me sound...
No. I might leave it in, because I think it tells us something about how deeply ashamed you are of that very simple error. And I think it makes me like you even more. Because
I actually, I've decided that my Italian bakery is going to be called Il Fornaio Più Meglio, which means the bakery betterer.
The bakery betterer.
Don't you think?
I'd go to that. I would go to that.
Sorry, I interrupted to tell you a story that you'd already heard before, which really is just the height of rudeness.
No, it's the height of head coldness. Okay.
Yeah.
Bob and I were talking about it not long ago.
A few scant days.
Because we were reflecting upon the fact that we both had never experienced good teaching.
Oh, maybe we have talked about this before.
Maybe we have, because neither of us have.
That's not what I just.
No. You said inspiring.
Yeah.
And what we've both come to realize is that we have experienced some of our best teaching alongside. When we have been teachers, if that makes sense. So we have seen inspiring teachers in our colleagues, rather than
being on the receiving end.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to apologise, but I don't really want to apologise. The people who taught, I definitely think we have had this conversation. I may have even told this story before, that a man whose name doesn't need to be repeated. I was about to publicly shame my English teacher.
Though, right?
I can't remember his name. But my A-level English teacher said at one point, I've definitely told this story. We've had this conversation, I'm sure. Because he talked about bloody blah blah blah. All that glitters is not gold, and not in a like sort of piping up snarky way. I just went, oh, I think that's all that glisters is not gold. And he picked up the thinnest dictionary and it threw it at me and said, "Find glisters in there, Miller." So, yeah, it's not in here, but it is in the Shakespeare that it comes from. But I obviously didn't have the confidence to say that.
So he didn't. They didn't.
It was a he, of course. It was a he.
He didn't. It wasn't too inspiring. So do you feel like it would be easy for you to? Should we persist with this conversation that we've had before? Do you think it would be easy for you to talk about the opposite of inspiring teachers? So what is the opposite of inspiring?
Well, I don't know. I think I could say things about inspiring teachers because I've worked alongside so many of them.
Mm. Well, I'd like to hear some.
And I think you'd like to hear.
Well, I'd like to hear that, but I also would like to hear what the opposite of inspiring is. When someone basically kills, just neuters you, basically.
Yeah, I think
diminishes.
I think it's diminishing. I think it's the idea of when
kills enthusiasm.
It's a bit like much betterer. If you do a much betterer moment in a learning environment and you are scoffed at or scolded, you are much less likely to try to find how to say better, much better. You're going to just go, obviously I can't speak. I just won't bother.
Yes, and also to the credit of all the people who are listening, that not one batted an eyelid. So they didn't spring up to correct me. I mean, it would have been very odd in those circumstances for anyone to have corrected me. It was because I realised later on that I'd said it that... anyway, so yes, that is...
I think... and I think it's... I had a moment of being mansplained to this week.
Can a man be mansplained to?
He can be if a man's doing it. I think it's the action of the person who's doing the splaining,
not the recipient,
rather than the person who's doing the listening, or the sieving. Would the sieving be the opposite of the splaining? So I was sieving what he was splaining. So I man-sieved some mansplaining.
Nice.
And it was somebody in a work environment who was in an somebody who I'm trying to work out how to say this without pointing.
We don't have video on, so it won't matter if you point.
No, I mean
I know exactly what you mean.
It was somebody who has a role in an institution. That's just how. Okay, let's just leave it with it's somebody
just a
who
human being.
Okay.
A human being.
Here we go.
Yes.
It's somebody who who works in the same place as me, but not in the same area as me.
Right, which is good because that could be not the same building. It could be anyway. Area's very vague.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't work in the same area as me. Oh my gosh. Siri is really mad at me. Siri just told me that it didn't understand. It's like, wow, okay, I'm not sure I understand why you're shouting at me.
Siri's had some terrible teaching. For machine learning, it's had terrible teachers.
It really has, because it's a good idea to just interrupt people when they're in the middle of trying to say something. So, as I was trying to say before Siri interrupted me, this is somebody who works in a totally different area to me, and bearing in mind I work in research and knowledge exchange. Okay, that's the area I work in. Mm-hmm. And this person was explaining to me how research works, and I said, It's not quite like that. It was one of those moments of trying to work out how to say I'm sorry without it turning into a moment where I'm effectively laughing at somebody saying much betterer. And I found it really challenging because my hackles were well and truly up, because there was a female colleague with me as well who was also being splained to.
At the same time,
things.
or different.
At the same, oh no, she was splained something else, and she sieved it, but she woman-sieved the mansplaining. I man-sieved the mansplaining, and so this is a colleague who I was going to say who I respect deeply, but in all honesty, I respect all my colleagues. I think they're all brilliant. I think they're all brilliant. In fact, one of them has just sent me a little emoji of a dancing grandma shaking maracas. I mean, what's not to love about that?
A dancing what? Shaking maracas?
A dancing grandma shaking maracas.
Nice.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that you want to get on your teams.
Have you got Teams open as we are
No,
talking?
I haven't got it open. It just it comes up on my iPad as an alert. What kind of a monster do you think I am?
I've just set up a focus mode so that it's called podcasting, so that nothing comes up on my phone except a call from you.
Such a good idea. I'm not as clever as you at using machine learning to unlearn me. So this splainer, he continued to explain my job and the context I work in to me, and I really had to find that place where I was like, I'm not sure it's worth trying to course correct somebody in this moment, which is, I know it's not quite the same conversation as
inspiring
teachers, but I think it takes me back to the thing about somebody who kills an educative moment is somebody who is unable to hold back that sense of wanting to correct for the sake of correcting in a very particular kind of way, rather than going, let's let this play out because there might be something important that this person has to communicate that is sort of stuck behind a subroutine of bullshittery, and we'll get there. I'm obviously, I'm mixing my.
Yeah, I mean, a subroutine of
cocktails.
bullshittery is an excellent. Did you say mixing your cocktails?
I did, because I was going to say metaphors, but I just prefer to say
Even
cocktails.
Yeah, because it's really, isn't that a really extraordinary test or challenge, which is to rather than being, what do you call it, sieving.
Yes,
What's
seething is exactly what it was.
What's it like to deeply listen to it, like so that you start to find out more about this human. I mean, I'm being incredibly idealistic because it would piss me off too, no question. But like, there's something in there, isn't there, which is the possibility that, because I mean, who knows why it is that this person is doing what they're doing, like to like all sorts of profoundly. Terrible reasons why that they are the way they are. Or in that particular moment, it might even just be that they're not always like that. It just happened to be for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
They got sent a terrible emoji from one of their colleagues that really riled them and made them feel inadequate.
You don't know exactly. You don't know what particular wave of shit they've just rolled into a conversation.
Here they are trying to prop themselves up on the pop, prep, and prop. Yeah. Oh, tricky. Very tricky. But that's one of the things about, I guess, teachers is that you get them ongoing.
Yes.
And there was we had a teacher, just a reminder of a teacher at dance school who used to teach us Graham technique. So this is Martha Graham technique in first year, and he did it was the real McCoy. And he was, and still is, I'm pretty sure he's still alive. It would be shocking if he wasn't. His name's Joe Scolio. What a fantastic human being. Just a gentle and open and so I don't think his teaching was, I think he just was sort of teaching by the book, but what he brought to it because of the kind of person he was, opened up what is a pretty it's not much fun doing Martha Graham technique. It's pretty. It's pretty stodgy stuff. I'm sorry, I'm going to get a whole lot of email from people listening, going blah 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 blah. No, it's not. No, it's not.
There's a lot of Graham fans listening to this podcast.
A lot of Martha Graham fans.
Yeah.
Madonna, I know you're a Martha Graham fan. I don't want another email from you. And
just go and release that somewhere else.
Exactly. I found it pretty stodgy stuff. But just because of his demeanour and his openness and gentility as a teacher, I don't think I've ever, especially male teachers. I mean, I've had a few of them. Actually, come to think of it, I've had quite a few who are a little bit like this, who played or are a version of masculinity that made me think differently as to how I might be as a man.
Oh, pause. Do you mean that they were a version of masculinity that sort of subverted norms and made you
Correct.
go, ooh? Or, okay, right. Because the opposite, the equal and opposite is possible, isn't it? Which is like they were such an aggressively masculine presence that it made you go, ooh, I'm not doing that.
Yes, and I didn't
But you're talking...
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to think if I had many of those... I don't think I had many of those, or none come to mind, that who were, aggressively propping up again that version of masculinity, or that well-trodden version of masculinity. And I remember one thing that Joe did was he walked out of class one day, and it was the most un-Joe-like thing that Joe could possibly have done. And it was just so powerful. It was so powerful because he didn't, it's like, I mean, his temperature must have been rising for sure, but he didn't express that. He just went, in fact, I don't remember him saying anything. I just remember him leaving. And we were like looking at each other going, because clearly we knew that we'd been, we were about to enter stodgy Graham land, and we were doing everything we could to resist that. And his response was I'm out of here. I'm not going to, if you're going to be like this, I'm not going to. But he didn't tell us any of that. He just left. And there was something about that, which, I don't think it was passive aggressive at all. I just think he was going, right, you sort that out, and then I'll come back and teach you. But he didn't need to say any of that. It was really, and it's funny, that's what I remember about, I remember lots of things about him, but that one came to mind for sure.
To sort of to just gently nudge us away from potentially pre-trodden ground for those listeners who have better memories than we have.
Oh, they will remember too, won't they? Oh.
They will, and I'm slightly anxious now that I'm just that at some point in a previous conversation I made this same thematic jink.
You mean that you've, even in the last time we were talking about this, you had the same little loop that you were reminded of as a consequence of. Yeah,
that's my worry. That it's like at this point in a previous conversation that I don't remember, I probably course corrected us and then said something along the lines of.
I can't wait.
I'm interested in, do you feel that you have ever held a space that was one of inspiration for others?
I don't feel comfortable saying this, but yes, I do.
Okay, so tell me, first of all, why you don't feel comfortable saying that.
Because I think it's quite a grand claim.
That you think you've been inspiring as a teacher?
Yeah.
Why? Why does that feel like a grand claim?
Because I'm not sure it's for me to make the claim. I think it's for other people to say that of me. Right.
So here's my... Okay, yeah, I totally get that, and I think I agree with you. But I also sort of have another.
I also know I've done the opposite. I know for sure I've done the opposite.
But here's the thing: you feel okay to say that you know that you've been stultifying and shit, and you've made people not want to learn. That's what you just said. Don't take that as a critique.
Yeah, but I'm only saying that because I said that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't sounding like I was just someone who was just full of inspiration for other people.
But interesting. But it's interesting because you went like, oh, for sure, I know that I've done the opposite. But you said I feel really uncomfortable saying that.
Humble brag.
Is that what it is? Is it a humble brag, or is it just because I'm
it's
curious.
unease, it's dis-ease, it's unease with.
But we don't feel. But you didn't seem uneasy about saying that you were shit at your job.
No, this is well-trodden territory for us, isn't it?
But it's yes, it is well-trodden territory. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it feels to me that if we are able to say I'm shit at my job on certain moments, but we are not able to say I was absolutely transcendent at my job on this particular day, and I did a really fucking good job, then do we not just do we become a bit pallid and just like, you know, we leach out the potential for inspiration, we leach out the potential for being really great, because actually that might make us, if we're aiming for that, maybe that will make us feel a bit self-aggrandizing and a bit of like a, you know, Johnny Big Balls. I don't really like that vibe, I don't really like that feeling. But then, you know, I don't get the sense that Robert my teacher, throwing a dictionary at me across the room, that if he was to do more moments of thinking when he was good, he might be able to own those moments when he was not good. Because somebody corrected me in a committee that I was chairing a couple of weeks ago, and my response was, "Cool." Anyway,
Is that all you said?
it's like
I used to actually.
Cool.
I've definitely at conferences. I've definitely gone out of my way. I think I've said this to you. Gone out of my way to pronounce the names of well-known philosophers incorrectly, just to wind up academic, because I know that it really winds people up. You know.
I've been reading a lot of the work of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Exactly, and also Gillies.
Sorry, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what that is.
And Gillis Stilitze. Guitari.
I very much like the work of D. Louse and guitar. All throughout my PhD, my software would insist on trying to respell Deleuze to D-Louse.
D-Louse.
D-Louse and guitar. Great.
That is great. Yes, Rizzo-matic.
Wasn't she in Greece?
Yeah, she was, wasn't she?
She's good.
Yeah. So
Rizzo's PG, pass it on. She's like a faulty typewriter. What do you mean? She skipped a period. Sorry. I can feel the day dropping away as I talk more shit.
I love being part of your transition into. Do you think out of normality or into normality? Which is it for you?